Alright, hello everyone. This is just a YouTube video on. It's not really a tutorial, it's more of just a showcase of a fire range I've built in Rust. This is originally designed off of a YouTuber called Wayuls Designs. Link to his video will be in the description below. I'm just basically going to try and take you through it as best as I can. I will note straight off the bat that the power usage for this is sort of unknown, just purely because I've got a test Jenny on this server. This is a public PvE server. Link will be in the description below for that as well. Well, the name will be in the description. I don't really know if I've got a link to it. I'll put a link maybe to the Discord for it. I probably could do that. But yeah, it's just a build that I've been working on over the wipe. Yeah, I'd say it's loosely based off Wayuls' design. It originally started out as the same design, but then because I didn't realise the video was from a year ago, so there's a few things changed with the electrics now that I've sort of had to account for. But yeah, we'll get straight into it. So initially, this is what's going to start the firing range. So this has just got its own power source into it, keeps it constantly powered. 60 seconds on the timer, activate it, and then the range starts. So it'll just switch through different ones. So what's happening initially is it resets itself at the start and opens all the doors, but then the random switches kick in and choose a sequence. And then it'll keep choosing sequences for the 60 seconds. Every 5 seconds, I think I've set it to, the doors should change, depending on what the random switches do. Obviously they are random, so they could stay the same. They could all open, they could all close. So that's where we are at the moment. So I'm just waiting for this to end, but we'll shoot a targets off, so there's nothing on the score at the moment. Shot a target down, one on the score. That one might take a second. Some of them take a second. I've got to set some of the timers, but they are accurate. They will add up. It's just a case of waiting for the target to kick back up. But yeah, highest score is 43 at the moment. Once the high score's hit, sends off a signal through that, which goes to a bunch of lights. Neon sign says high score and stuff. Happy days. Gets a bit of flashy. So yeah, once everything's over, it resets itself and closes its doors. That was what I initially had trouble with, why the design is different now, because the doors are all staying open instead of closed, and they're resetting at the end, so we had to account for that. Anyway, I'm going to come back when it's daytime, actually, just to make it a bit easier looking in behind, but I just wanted to show you it more at night because it does light up and stuff as well. Looks pretty nice with all the light switches. So we'll take you into the back real quick just to show you the circuits at night. Looks a bit spooky. Looks cool though. Looks a bit intimidating, but it is fairly straightforward once you sort of get the gist of it. Yeah, and I'll come back and take you all through that now. Okay guys, I am back, so I'm going to talk you through how this goes. Now, as I was saying about the power thing before, I forgot to mention, because I am on a public server, the test Jenny on this server has got an insane amount of power, so I don't really need to worry about power, so I've just sort of added whatever power to whatever things to make them work. So we can have a look and go through them. You'll have to sort of do the calculations and scaling yourself. I do apologise. I'll also apologise about some of the wiring as well. Like, I've tried to keep it fairly neat so we can see where it's going, but at the same time, you get so far, man, and it's just a case of you just place it where it places. Do you know what I mean? You don't want to. I don't know, you get to a certain point, you're like, you know what, I'm just putting it here and forgetting about it. So, right, as I was saying before, this is initially powered on its own power source. Then this goes through to the back of this area. This is where all the magic happens. So this will be powered in to this only one that's off here. So I mean, pretty much everything that's off is either on the reset or on that timer that's in the booth. Timer in the booth is what starts the game, so this is essentially what's controlling the game. Here we've got the power in from the door controller that's in the booth. So obviously when the power is sent from the timer through the door controller, door open, power straight to this, which this then powers off. We'll talk about the branch in a sec because that's part of the reset. So this powers off to this branch here, which will then power this circuit. So this circuit is a simple timer loop circuit. You can find any YouTube video on these. They're simple to make. It's pretty much what I've done to find the same thing. So they're fairly straightforward to set up. I'll talk you quickly through it just to save you the time if you don't want to look through it, but at the same time I'm not very good at explaining stuff, so I'll help you guys best I can. So anyway, when the game starts, obviously this will power this up. This will in turn power the A side. The branch out goes into the A side, which, what have I got branched out? I've got 20 branched out, but again, you could probably change that because power doesn't really, it's not necessary so much for this bit because it's the timer itself that powers this circuit. So the more power through the timer is better than more power through here. At least I'm sure that's the case. So right, so then yeah, you'll power this through input A. It'll go to the power out. Now I've put a switch in here just because when the game starts, this will power up, but this needs to be toggled. So without the switch here, this will just constantly go on and I won't be able to change the time. So the switch is here just if I want to change the time on this and set it different. This timer, all this does is for the doors change sequence, so it's or the RAN sequence. So in a sense that if every 5 seconds it will change its sequence. I think I've got it set to 5. So you can set it shorter, longer, whatever sort of game mode you kind of want. This, if I turn it off whilst it's powered, we'll run through it quickly. Might as well whilst we go. Not going to be a quick video. I do apologise. I'll try and keep it as quick as possible. But yeah, so we power this on. That obviously starts the game up. And then we will see that is now in a constant loop. So it's like for every 5 seconds that will just activate again because it's being triggered. But if I want to set it to a different time, I just flick that switch. When that turns off, I can set that and activate it to whatever I want to, and then just reflick the switch. Oh, sorry, I'm going to turn it back on like that and just keep it on, and it will carry the loop in. So yeah, the power into the switch into the toggle, then that power outside of the branch goes into the timer into that branch, the branch out goes into the B side of the XOR switch, and then the power out goes into this circuit. Now this is just branched to each one of these branches for the power out, and then the branches out go into the splitters, and then these splitters I think go into the set of the RAN switches. Now the RAN switches are on their own power source as well, so you just power them from a battery or whatever it is you're powering them from, straight from there into those. Obviously probably best to split off. Again, I tend to do this method, branch out, splitters, and then into each one. That's pretty much the same for anything that needs to be powered. So yeah, so that goes into the sets on the RAN switches. Now I believe the RAN switches themselves are powered again by, like I said, by any power source that you're using. I've got 13 going into each of them at the moment. Just double check that it is. I am right, yep, that's their power sources there. So think of that coming off the batteries or whatever. That's to each RAN. And then the RAN output goes to blockers that are by the door. We power the blockers. We'll get to that in a second. Just want to make sure I'm getting the right things. Yeah, we set that power to the set. Yeah, we'll talk about the RANs then real quick. So yeah, they've got power into the RANs, then the output to the blockers. Now I'll show you the blocker. Go to the first one here. So yeah, the rounds power through into these blockers here. Now I do apologize, they are like, the memory cell should be sort of above them, just as a better sort of display, but it was a last minute add, because I only found it an issue at the end, so it was sort of like a last minute add to just try and compensate for it. So I do apologize, I sort of back to front, but the RAM switches go into these blue blockers, which power through to the memory cell, which then the memory cell inverted output goes into the door switch. The door switch goes into the simple light, and that's just for effect really. You don't have to have a simple light or anything, that's just, you know, for aesthetics looking. So when a door opens, the light switches on, when door closes, light switches off, that good stuff. So if you know, if you're sort of trying to save power, probably best not to add the light, it's not really needed. With these targets as well, I've got like the skin where it sort of like LED glow, so if you've got that in your server where they got a skin box or something like that, it's always good to use. It saves you using any power or lights or anything really, so people can still play at night. Yeah, so what was we saying there? Runs into the blocker into the memory cell, inverted output into the door switch, and then either you can have the light, or if you don't, you go from the door switch straight into the reset of the target. So make sure it's the reset that it goes into. It's more, I think that's to do with adding the score or just shutting the doors when it resets. I'm not entirely sure how it works, but it works. Right, so we talk about, yeah, remember, like I said, the targets now have their own power too. So again, battery source, whatever it is you're using, they will have their own power. So branch it off, splitters into each one of your targets. We'll go down and look at them in a minute. We'll look at them now, actually. Probably easier if I'm just showing you. Okay, so I think this is to the targets. Yep. So power outputs into each branch, and then they branch out to the splitters. Put whatever power you need for however many targets and stuff you've got. Now, bearing in mind, the targets do also power other stuff, so you're going to need to, like, I think they take most of the draw power, those and the RANs. Everything else is fairly low power, depending on, again, how many targets or doors or stuff you're using. Now, also bear in mind with this circuit, it's not your targets that are randomized, it's your doors. So you've got to compensate for that as well, because builds, there's some builds which don't want to use doors. This doesn't, at least I don't think, works for those builds. Maybe if you put the random switch into the lower on the targets, because that is, funnily enough, one port I'm not actually using on the targets is the lower port, because they've got 4 inputs, so they've obviously got the reset, the lower, the input and the output, and the lower we're not using. So anyway, the target, this is the target power, so that's coming, you know, straight off their power source, powers those. Then the target output goes into each one of these splitters. Now obviously each one of these splitters, again, like I said, has got their own target, so each target has 3 outputs. So the first output off each target splitter, first one goes into each one of these XOR switches. These are the XOR switches. So, you know, I've got splitter, so the way I've got it designed is the bottom row is my bottom row of targets, middle row is middle row, top row, etc. So first one from the first row into input A, second one from the first slot, which is your second target, first splitter port, into the B input. So you just chain them up all the way, so your third splitter off your third target into that one, fourth splitter off your fourth target into that one, fifth splitter, fifth, and so on and so forth, however many you're using, and then just daisy chain them up into one XOR switch. So, and then that goes straight into the increment of your score counter in your booth. So that's what's going to be adding up your score. That's initially, every time a target gets hit down, it will send a signal to these, bish bash bosh, straight to your score system. Might be a bit of delay. Now the excuse me. Sorry about that. So the only difference, what you'll notice, like in Wayuls' video, he's done the same thing, but back then I think he only needed 1 unit of power to go through. Like, it was a bit like the door switches, and it just daisy chain up through and it'd work, so you didn't need much power going through it. But I found that didn't work for me. I don't know if that's going to be the case for everybody, but for me, I had to put more power through it. So I think, don't quote me, but I think I've got about, you need at least roughly, for this build itself, about 10 power going through, because I always use about two units of power for each component I use, give or take, depending on what the component is. Obviously, you know, you've got neon signs and stuff that take more, but like basic components like these, normally about two power or something like that. So, you know, just to play safe. So you've got 2. So let's just say we're going off the first and the second splitter, for instance, there. So the first one obviously being A output, so you want 2 coming into that, but you'll also want it to power that 2, to go to that, to go to that, to go to that, because it's going to be, that's going to be one target in there. So that target's going to want to reach all the way through there to set off the signal on the score. So you're going to want to, I think for this build, I'm probably going to want at least 10 power, because then you've got 2 to go to there, 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 which is 8, and then the final 2 to the score, which is a 10. So you're sort of playing it safe there. But that's the score setup. I mean, the wires are fairly simple. I hope I've detailed it a bit enough for you guys, but let's move on to another bit. So output 2 of each one of your targets now will be to the XOR reset switches. Now, this is where it gets a bit different from the video in the description. So this goes, it's sort of the same principle. So you've got each one of those splitters, their second input goes to the input A of each one of these. So you'll go, you know, the middle one from 1 to the first one, middle one from 2 to the second, middle one from 3 to the third, and so on and so forth. They're all onto the A side. And then the B side, I'm pretty sure, is coming from the reset. Yes, so this is the reset switch. So what happens is the timer in the booth, hang on, let me get here. Okay, yeah, so again, that timer in the booth powers up this one. The branch side of this, remember we talked about the power in goes to this timer loop, sets all that off, sets that, good stuff. The branch outside is in the toggle option on the reset switch here. So this reset switch, again, it has its own power source. Then you put this one into the toggle, so when it turns on, it activates that. So, because what you want the system to do is initially reset it as it starts. So any previous score that was on the score before will reset to 0, ready for the next person to do it as it opens. Also, if they've hit the hard score and the lights are going off and stuff, it turns those off as well. So you also want it to reset the memory cells as well, because this reset we've added here will initially close all the doors at the end. It will set the memory cells to initially what you don't want them on for the game to begin. So it sort of does that at the end, but this counteracts that and then opens all the doors at the start, ready for the sequences to be able to program through. I'm sorry if that don't make sense. Again, I've struggled to explain stuff, bear with me. I will try as best I can. And if there's any comments or anything as well that are asking for help trying to build, I will try and answer best I can too. I will also, I'm pretty sure I did say, but just again, if I didn't, in the description below, I will try and put how many components this build is. Honestly, depending on what server you're on, if you don't have to worry about power, this build's perfect. But if you have to worry about power, I do recommend scaling it down a bit. Just to ease of life as well, to be honest, because this was a bit of a pain in the ass too. So yeah, what are we on to next? We're on to the reset. Okay, so yeah, when that timer powers on the booth, powers that, it also toggles the reset from that branch option, and then when that toggles the reset, this activates which goes back to this side, what we were talking about. Hang on, let's just click on the right one first. It's the power outside to these reset ones, which, remember, like I said before, the A side is coming off the turret outputs. I keep saying turret. If I do say turret, I mean target. I do apologise, considering I never really use turrets. But yeah, the second output from each one of these targets, the splitters that's coming from the target output, are into the A side, and the B side is just branched out from this timer. Sorry, I do forget. From this timer, it is branched out, and then each branch off these branches, so there's 15 branches, are branched into the B side of each one of these Zors. Okay, so I hope I've explained that a little bit. And then you've got the power outside goes into the branch power on this one. So there's an extra, if it says 30 branches all in all here, I think. This is again where it gets different from the build, because before on Wayuls' build, the power out would just go straight to the just check the reset function on the RAMs. Now we want it to do that, but we also want it to go to, I think it's the reset function on the memory cells that are by the doors. So that's trailing off now. Let me just get one. Yeah, okay, that is the one we need, I think, is it? No, I think we want this one. We'll check this one because this one will be easiest to find. So less running for me. I'm not an admin, unfortunately. This is just a public server I'm on. It's a public build, so okay, so that goes into the reset. Yeah, that's right, I was right then. So it goes into the reset of the memory cells. That'll initially open them back up. So let's go back in here. Where was we? Yeah, so each branch out goes to the memory cell reset, and each power out of these go to the rand reset. Now remember, that's from the Zor switch to a branch, so you've got to go from a branch to the B side of each Zor switch, which goes from the reset. You've got the A side, it goes from the target output splitters, and then the output of the Zor switches branch out, branch to memory cell reset and rand reset. That's the initial reset there. Now with the third output on the target splitting, is to the timer toggle function on these timers. So each third output of each one of those target splitters is to each one of these toggle on the timers. Now the timers, again, these are sort of how long I think when the target gets hit, how long it takes to reset. I think so you can sort of set these to what you want. Again, typically 3 to 5 seconds is fine. So yeah, each one of those go into the toggle. Now again, this has its own power source, so you know, batteries, whatever you're using, Jenners, whatever, straight into the bottom of these. So I'm using splitters, branches, same functions, all these. Excuse me a minute. Okay, and then we go from, okay, so it's a splitter in, and then we go to the blockers. Now this was into the side, is it? I'm not sure what the input's called. We can go and check one, but they go into the side of the blockers, the block function. Yeah, so the block pass-through function. Again, remember the blockers are powered by the RAN switches. I think we went through that. I should have put some signs up for you guys as well. I do apologise again, this has been sort of like a last minute thing. I'm sticking this together. I was just trying to get a video in before the wipe, because obviously once wipe's around, this is gone. I don't know, plan on building it again for a while at least. So, and if I do, hopefully I'll have a bit of help next time, because I tend to build a lot of these on my own. So I tend to try not to do it too much because I'll burn myself out. But but yeah, we talked about the round resets, talked about the round sets. So that's the set, that's the reset, it's the blocker, not the block, sorry, not the blocker, the memory cell resets too. Those to the block input functions. Just trying to think what I haven't gone through with you guys. I haven't gone through that. I think that might be the last bit. Just double checking. What was that? That goes to, wait, where did that go to? Electrical branch. I'm trying to think what that goes to. I'm going to take a look at that. I want to make sure I try and get everything for you guys as well, because I don't do videos, as you'll see when you find, if you find this. It's just a case of I don't see many builds like this. To be fair, Wayuls is one of the only few people I've found that I've sort of been able to follow the details on, to be honest. So I just thought I'd try and get a video out there as well, because there's some I don't know, some cool shit you can do on Rust. And I feel like, you know, with PvP servers and stuff like that, you can't really do this sort of stuff. So anyway, clear count. Okay, so that's the clear function. That's what that does. So the reset also clears this as well. So, you know, if there's a target on here, clear it back to 0. So every time you switch that on, this will clear, ready for the scores to be added up again. Okay, that's right. That's right. Just wanted to make sure that was definitely it. So that's, yeah, that's the clear function. So again, that's all to do with the reset switch. So that's that. We've been through that. Again, all branched off into the B sides, out, branch, rand, reset, memory cell reset, score counter from the first one of each splitter, in, daisy chain up, straight out into the counter, into the increment side, that is. I think I said that as well, but just to be sure, the increment side, so it adds up, and then all you have to do is just set the function on the score counter to however high score you want, you know, and then once it hits that score, you can put a little power out with some lights on it or something, just to make it a bit more flashy. I'll show you that as well in a sec as well. So I'll reset that just so you guys can see it. I just want to make sure I go through everything. Let's go through this as well. Okay, so this is part of the reset too. So what this initially does, this is a new bit off of Wayuls' video as well, where I was having an issue when I reset the system. It was keeping all the doors open instead of closed. I tried to use a memory cell and use because it's obviously got an inverted power and a normal power. For some reason it's the inverted power, it's acting like the normal. Well, it's sort of inverted, I guess, keeps doors open. But I was going to use the other side as well to try and like shut the doors at the end of the game, so nobody could keep shooting the targets, keep adding a score when, you know, the game was over. However, that didn't work, so I used the memory cell a different way, which is with this system here. Now, less of the babble. So the branch out, okay, we talked about that one. This is the second branch out now, because remember the power through went to this one, and then the power through went to that, which powered all this, but we didn't talk about the branch outside. So the branch outside goes over here. Now, when you power on the system in the booth, this all just powers up, powers this branch, and then this is what will reset the system at the end, so it shuts all the doors and keeps it locked down. So initially we're just powering these up. So these are off a power source, whichever power source you're using. Excuse me. These are fully powered. So, because the problem is with switches, again, as I think I've said before, if they're not powered, even if you're trying to toggle it, if it's not powered, and let's say, for instance, this isn't powered now, so, and then when you switch the system on, it powers these up. Or even though that's got a toggle function on it, it won't actually toggle it on. Again, I don't know if that's just this server or just me, but it's a weird function, so they have to be powered in order to be also toggled. But they have to be powered but off in order to activate the time. So I can hear a helicopter with me. I'm just going to take that off. So what you initially want to do is have these powered off a power source of some kind. Same with this timer down here. This is a bit of a weird timer system. So this kind of, I just sort of came up with this today. It might be out there, but anyway, powered. First branch, the power out on here goes into this timer here. This timer will power this branch, which will power out to the counter increment score. This is sort of the same setup as the auto timer loop here. Pretty similar. It's just instead of a switch, it's using to block the thing, it's using a timer. It's a bit weird, but yeah. So the initial power, let me just check both of these a minute. Goes into that timer, and it goes into this timer. So this timer is it's sort of the initial power up for this system. I think we've got this on 60 seconds. Yeah, so it's the same duration as the game. So whatever you set the game time to in the booth is what you roughly set this timer to. This counter, you want to set it to a set target to a 63. This is again if you're on a minute timer on the front booth timer. You want to set this to around 63, because by the time the delay gets through to it, 63 is sort of where it's at. If you set it sort of any shorter or any higher, it tends to not function right. So I feel like 63 is a sweet spot. If you're doing a minute timer, if you're doing any more or any less, you just sort of want to make the calculation yourself, to be fair, because it's, again, whatever it times on. So again, these two timers are powered. This is the initial one that powers the circuit, because this powers the A side of the exhaust switch, which goes into the toggle function of the timer. Timer will then go into the branch, power out into the increment side, set that to 63, and then the branch out into the B side of this saw, so it keeps the power on the loop. Now, again, this will run for 60 seconds. But it will get to about 63 on that before it activates. Now, this timer has got its own power source. This is going out to the clear function on the counter, because you want this timer to clear this so it resets it for the next game. So when this powers up initially, when you start the game, this will power up because it's branched out from that, and then it will power out to the toggle function of this, and then the branch out will be into the toggle function of this one. So it activates this circuit, resets this, which resets that, but starts this up at the same time. So it will reset that and start it up. So, you know, it'll count up to its 63, and then it'll shut all the doors again at the end of the game. And then once you start the game, the sequence keeps going. So yeah, that then is the counter though that powers through to the system. Because obviously you want the system to activate the memory cell. I think it's this. It goes into the set function. So these are branched out into splitters, and then the splitters go into each set function of the doors on the memory cell. So I'll quickly go and show you. So electrical branch on the one, splitter on the other there, look. So I don't know why it stopped viewing the wire, but we'll get around here. As you see that, it's into the set function. So when this triggers, it will trigger the set function on the memory cells, which will shut all the doors right at the end of the game when the booth door shuts. Might just be just before, maybe just after, but it will shut them. So that initially stops anybody, if you've got an open range like mine, where you know it's a bit open freely, for instance, it'll stop anybody cheesing the game after. So for instance, they're all shut now, but I've got this one open. Before, the way it worked, they'd all be open instead of closed, so obviously they'd all be like that. If this booth shut once the game was over, they could still jump out and shoot the targets, and it still add to the score. So that function that I've put there is just to shut all the doors at the end and stop that from happening. So, you know, it'll stop them essentially from cheesing the game. So I'll sort of let you see it in action again. So we'll start up the system, and then you get the randomising going. Like that. Looks good as well, with its little lights going. Got the little P keys that Wayuls put in as well. Gotta have the P keys. It was a nice little idea actually that I learned off him, to be fair. I didn't think about that before my last build. So that was, I'll give credit to him for that. But yeah, right, we'll run in quick before the thing ends, just to see the timer. You see it's going up, look. So it's counting up now. There's no power in this at the moment. This is going to power up when it gets to the 63 mark, which is going to shut all the doors at the end and lock everything down. So that's already reset. That resets at the start of the game. So that's getting towards to 50. So we'll go out here just to see the function in process. Try and capture both of the doors. Moment of truth. Boom. So that's effectively stops anybody trying to cheese a game, getting a bit of extra score points after the game's closed and being sneaky sneakies. So yeah, I think I've covered everything. Again, if there's any questions or anything, just leave them down below, and I'll try and answer them best I can. Like I said, I don't really do videos a lot at all, to be honest. I might look at getting into it. I mean, if this gets a few likes or whatnot, and you know, a couple of comments about it and that, and get a bit chatty, I might do some more if you guys are interested. Might try and build them a little better as well. Like, again, this is all experience. This is my second range build, I think. So my first one didn't have all the doors and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's I hope it helped you guys. I'm just making sure I've gone over everything. If not, like I said, ask the questions. I'll try and give you the answers. I said those are powered, so where they're going to the blocker, the side function in the blocker, the block pass-through. Yeah, we said about those branching off to the memory cell resets and the rand resets. We said about that function. We said this was a timer loop, powered into that, which powered into, this is when the game starts, powered into the rand set functions. Just double check so I'm not lying to you guys. Yeah, so I think we covered all the bases. I hope you guys like the build anyway, and if you do manage to build it, I hope you have fun with it. Again, I'll put the Discord, I'll put the Discord name. I'll put the Discord link in the bottom for this server. I'll also put the server name and stuff. Just so if you manage to get in before wipe, test it, try it out. I'm sure there'll be some people around that will come down and help you out and whatnot. Admin's pretty friendly on the server and they'll help you all they can. Yeah, hope you enjoyed, guys. Appreciate you watching, and maybe catch you in another one. Oh, my bad. One more thing before I go, guys, just to show you, because I forgot to show you in the video, and I did say I would. I've set the target score just at 2, just to see the little flashy, and there it is. Oh, congratulations, you got the high score. Couple of little flashies. Feel good, life's good. Feel like a winner. Yeah, that's it. I hope you all learned something. If not, you know, I haven't got any decent emotes, so we'll just put our hands up and say we're out.